Good evening, everyone. Out here doing an oil change on my 2011 F350 with 6.7 in it. And I know there's lots of videos on this, but figured I'd do one on how I've been doing it. So I'm going to change the oil filter and the pre and post fuel filters. So I'm going to change both fuel filters and the oil filter. So I've got my new filter here, and anytime I can put them on this way where they don't sit horizontal, they vertical, I fill them with oil first. Not sure if you can tell, but I have almost filled this one all the way up with oil. I've already removed my old filter. You can see where it sits. So what I'll do now is I'll take a rag, I'll wipe that off to make sure the old O-ring did not stay on the block, and it actually came off with the filter. And I'll just hand tighten the new filter on. The reason I mentioned the O-ring is I actually had a vehicle one time where I didn't check that. I ended up putting two O-rings on it, and of course one of them blew out and I lost all my oil. So we can get that done real quick, and then we'll drain it and add new oil. So just so everyone can see, you got your drain plug on the oil pan here, and these are really easy to take off, almost too easy. You just I can take my hand and just twist it off literally, and it rolls right out. So you've got your oil drain pan here with your plug. You come back, you're going to have your transmission drain plug over here. So unless you're changing your transmission fluid, you don't want to do that one. Check the front, it should be where your oil pan is. So started draining it. These engines take a lot of oil, so I'll have to dump this and then come back and drain the rest, and then we'll move on. As you can see, I've already got my filter on right there. There's an upside down part number in case you need it. I do like running Motorcraft things on Ford, AC Delco on GM. I'm not smarter than the engineer. They knew what it needed, so that's what I run. But it's up there, hand tight, full of oil. That way there's no dry start. Not that it'd be dry anyway, but it does help build oil pressure quicker. So I'm going to dump my pan and keep draining. Alright, letting the rest of it drain out. And as you can see, I've got my oil plug sitting there. And if you look right there, you can see the oil still trickling out of the drain pan. I would recommend letting this drain as long as you can. I've done other vehicles when it was a slow drip. I had it in the garage and put a cup up under it, and overnight came back with a full red Solo cup of oil that had just dripped out overnight. I'm not going to have time to do that with this one, but just wanted to mention it. Normally as well, this is a plastic oil plug. A lot of the metal ones have a magnet on the end. If you'll take a rag and wipe that off, it'll give you a lot of information and tell you how your engine's wearing. But we're going to let that drain as long as I can anyway. I don't have all day to let it sit, but we'll do that and put it back together and get some oil in the truck. Just to show you how much oil is left in a pan, this has been dripping for about an hour. I left it, came back, and this is still what I have. So like I said, you let it sit overnight, it'd fill up the one I did previously did Solo cup full of oil just dripping like this. But I got the majority out. I'm going to go ahead and clean off the drain plug like I did with the oil filter, and pop it back in and put some fresh oil in it. Alright, up top, 9 of the gravels, and going to fill up my engine crankcase with oil. As you can see, oil cap comes right off. Word of advice, if you're using filters or funnels that you've used before, wipe them off. This one, as you can see, a lot of debris in it. Nothing I want in an engine at all, but especially if I'm trying to put clean oil in it. So I'm going to wipe that out and put in not quite 3.5 gallons of oil. So we'll do that, check dipstick, and see what it looks like. Oil has been changed, fresh oil has been added up to the dipstick, or top line on the dipstick. Start her up. like everything's good. Go through all my warnings, yes. Go through them all twice. No funny lights, nothing but oil pressures. All is well. So now I get to reset the oil life monitor. If I can remember where it's at. And I don't remember where it's at. Maybe I should have looked for this before making the video. Oil life reset. Hold. Oil life has been reset. There it is. So, oil has been changed. I'll turn the truck off, pull the dipstick, and see if I need to add any after running it. Then we'll do fuel filters. So now for my least favorite part of this job, it's changing this filter right here. This is the first fuel filter. And the reason I hate it is I've done it twice, I think, on this truck. This will be the third. I've had problems getting it to not just dump fuel everywhere, and I hate the smell of diesel fuel. Grew up on a farm and I've smelled it all my life, and I just do not like it. But this is the cost of diesel ownership, right? So what I do is I will open that yellow drain, the petcock, let some of it start draining out. And what I had happen before is I did that thinking it would empty the fuel filter bowl, and it didn't. It just kept on and on and on. So what I eventually did was left that open and spun this off. To spin it off, you have to disconnect that plug. I open that drain valve, and I have a socket, an 1.25 inch socket, to spin that off. Now I have to do it while it's draining. If not, it'll just keep siphoning fuel out of the fuel tank. So I'm going to do that real quick. Hopefully it'll work the way I think it will, and we'll drop the new fuel filter in it. Just got my fuel filter out, and it was way tighter than I remember them being. But had to pull on it, finally got it out. As you can see, it's got some dirt and trash in it. So it's doing its job. This is after 5,000 miles of use. I try to change my oil and fuel filters every 5,000. I've seen hundreds of debates online if I only do mine every 10 or 15,000. But it's kind of cheap insurance, as critical as the fuel systems are on a diesel. So get this out, and what you have to do with this, you hold it in one hand, got to pull on this side, and it pops out. Here's the new one. You can see what holds it in. So get my new fuel filter in, get it back on, and put it back together. One thing I wanted to mention with the fuel filter, you don't have to count how many turns it took to get it off or anything, but with mine it gets really tight right at the end, and I had to put almost one more turn on it to keep it from leaking. So I made a mental note of where my petcock and the plug was, so you can just kind of line it back up in that spot. So I just kept moving until it felt like it was getting really tight, and put it right back at that position. So next, now that that new one's in, we'll do the final filter up here up under the hood, right here. And there's a bolt that goes here to clamp that filter down. You have to take off these fuel lines, push those together. Same thing over here, you'll squeeze that and pull, and that will disconnect the fuel lines off of this filter. And it comes out as a whole canister. And the new one, that I should have been better prepared for, looks just like the canister right here. So that is your whole filter. So you won't get to see what it has been filtering, but judging by this one, it shouldn't be too bad. But definitely want to change it while you're doing these. So I got my fuel filter changed. Wasn't that bad up here. And so you squeeze these guys together, push down, that'll pull back. Squeeze, there's one on the other side over here. Squeeze those together, pull back. Then you just slide your filter out. It's a little hard to get past the dipsticks, but it'll come through. New one in, and then make sure that these seated. This one just clips back on, this one you push up, and then you have to push that clip back in. So now, I will cycle the key about 5 times, and it should prime it, get the air out, I hope. There's one. 2. A 3. Now, I know it's hard to tell over the chime, but you can hear the fuel pump cycling. You can hear the fuel pushing through it. May go more than 5 on this one just because. It sounded like it got quieter that time. Alright, it sounds pretty quiet this time. Just double check. I hear it. I see no leaks. Maybe one more cycle, turn the key and see if it starts. I hope so. Alright, glow plug warning gone. There it is, started up. So I now have fresh oil and 2 fresh fuel filters, fresh oil filter. And that's how I change the oil on this truck and the fuel filters. So I do oil and fuel filters about every 5,000. I know it doesn't need it that frequently, at least not the fuel filters. But again, it's just cheap insurance. It doesn't cost that much. And I really don't drive this truck that much. So there you have it. I hope it helps someone. Y'all have a blessed day. And happy Easter to you. It is Easter Sunday and I shouldn't be working. But all I do is work. So it's the only day I had at the house to do it. Thanks for watching.